programming,
the IGSBA budget sports
in the surrounding area.
Hi, I'm Ron Tite. Welcome to Studio Q. It's overall day today on Studio Q as we're dressing like two unfunny granola bar gurus.
Hi, I'm Kirsta Teague, and we'd like to extend our special thanks to Frank Edwards for being the first person to write to the editor of the Journal about Studio Q. I mean, I know that the article's not the most complimentary, but it was publicity and we can work on that. Thanks, Frank. We have stories coming up on Candlelighting and the rowing team, as well as a streetwise on our country's political leaders.
Yeah, first up, though, is a look at one of Canada's most vocal politicians. Last year, the proverbial pot-o controversy was stirred when Preston Manning visited Queen's campus. Unless you've been locked away for the past year, you may know that Canada is involved in a constitutional crisis that's dragging on like a bad winter right now. This year, however, Mr. Manning visited campus to voice his objection to the constitutional accord that was reached at Charlottetown. Bruce Sellery reports.
Why does he want to make the poor people in this country poorer and the rich richer?
Except for about 30 placard-carrying protesters, the return of Preston Manning and his Reform Party to Kingston didn't create much of a stir this year. But just in case, 15 guards from Tash Security, paid for by the local Reform Party Riding Association, were on hand to prevent a recurrence of the confrontation in '91. Almost exactly a year ago, this was the scene in front of Grant Hall. There was anger, first against Preston Manning's policies, and then against the protesters who disturbed the address. The situation boiled over on a number of occasions, and Kingston police stepped in. Aside from beefed-up security, though, this could have been a reformer rally anywhere. The predominantly white, middle-aged, and middle-class audience listened to the former evangelist explain his resounding no to the current constitutional amendments. He says that Canada is presently in a financial hole, and that if we want to get out of this hole, we first have to stop digging.
Not only does this agreement fail to stop the digging, it hands the federal government 4 more shovels.
The accord will be another blow to the economy, he feels, but he doesn't think that this deal will silence never-ending constitutional talks.
I know that that implies that someone by saying, yes, this is going to ease the Quebec problem, but as soon as we come back to what in the agreement, I took an hour the other night trying to get Audrey McLaughlin to say what in the agreement produces that effect, and she couldn't say. She went on to the general, but somehow it helps. You know?
And while man displayed ability at the showmanship required for a leadership tour, he was upstaged by a group of Queen students. All cameras turned to Velshi, the sequel. Before his appearance at the rally, he reiterated what he'd said in his press release to local media.
So I can't say that I won't say anything. I'm not planning to say anything. I'm planning to go there and listen to Preston Manning and try and get a question in if possible.
Seen here last year, he was on his feet because he strongly disagreed with the Reform Party's policy to draw questions at random from a box instead of answering them from the floor. This year, his group came to challenge Manning on the same issue, approaching the podium to demand a personal response. Reform's initial explanation was time constraints, but when the band struck up a tune and the Purple Bucket Brigade wandered the aisles collecting questions, it became apparent that there was more to the reasoning.
When he argues Preston Manning that I'm going to get kicked out, why don't you have him kick me out?
Because out you go. Out you go. Out you go.
Both Velshi and Paul Finch refused to leave the stage area. They were then physically ejected amid shouts and flailing arms after refusing Manning's offer to answer their questions in addition to the balloted ones.
I can have my question read because I make a fuss. What about the rest of the Canadians who need their questions answered? That is not fair.
The spotlight reclaimed, Manning reiterated his visions of a new Canada to the crowd, but turnout of 550 this year was down significantly from 1991, when Grant Hall was filled to its capacity of 1,098 people. Mysteriously, Manning, it seems, had different figures.
Your numbers were adversely affected this year, less enough for people than the rally last year. Do you think it's because of your no stance?
Well, this is one of our biggest meetings that we've had.
But compared to last year, I mean.
No, this is larger. This is about double last year.
Regardless of ticket sales, Preston Manning is at risk of alienating some of his Ontario supporters with his adamant no to the Charlottetown Accord. Supporters who believe in his economics, but not in his idea that a no vote will silence the constitutional drum. For Studio Q, I'm Bruce Sellery reporting.
And in other constitutional news, the Kingston and the Islands Yes Committee kicked off their local campaign Wednesday. They're a citizens group campaigning for the yes side of the upcoming referendum on the Charlottetown Constitutional Accord. After a quick press conference at Kingston City Hall, they held a small constitutional forum outside the John Deutsch Centre. The speakers included Kingston Mayor Helen Cooper and Gordon Cressy, the president of the Ontario Yes campaign and vice president of the University of Toronto.
I mean, let's understand the simple fact of life. For the next 20 days, the most important thing in Canada is the referendum and the Blue Jays. And both are going to peak at the same time, which is really nice. On the 25th, Sunday on the 25th, the Blue Jays will win the 7th game in Atlanta and come out and endorse the accord. And on the 26th, there will be a substantial majority in this province voting yes for it.
After taking questions from Queen's students, their tour continued with the official opening of the Kingston Yes campaign headquarters later in the afternoon. And to help students sort out the referendum issues, a panel discussion was held Tuesday night. A couple hundred students showed up at Lenore Cafeteria to hear from a variety of panelists. They represented all sides of the constitutional debates. The event was organized by resident Dons as part of a Queen's 101 event.
Last Sunday marked the 103rd anniversary of the candlelighting ceremony at Queen's. While candlelighting has always entailed the gathering of female students and alumni within the Queen's community, this year the organizers of the event decided to get a little more casual. Lenore MacAdam was there.
Queen's 100th annual candlelighting ceremony took place last Sunday at Grant Hall. This year it was held in the afternoon rather than the evening. Candlelighting is essentially a celebration of women at Queen's. It is also a way of welcoming first-year female students. The ceremony was about an hour long and consisted of various musical acts, speeches, and poetry readings. The keynote speaker was Claudette McKay-Lassonde, Assistant Deputy Minister at the Ontario Ministry of Culture and Communications, who spoke about the importance of women supporting one another in business and politics. The act candlelighting lacked the visual splendor of past evening ceremonies, but it was nevertheless a moving experience for those involved. Afterwards, a short reception was held for those in attendance. I spoke to Alison Alejos, one of the organizers, and asked her why the ceremony was held during the day this year.
We thought this afternoon women who had children could bring them without having to get a babysitter, and women who have night classes could come and share.
The afternoon was ultimately a success. This is Lenore MacAdam for Studio Q.
Candlelighting ceremony coincided with the annual No Means No Week. This year was a low-key effort with only a couple of display tables set up around the campus. Organizers say they hope to keep the No Means No message in people's minds for more than just 1 week. That's why scattering their events throughout the year. This was also Anti-Racism Week, sponsored by the Racism and Anti-Discrimination Committee. The highlight of the week was Wednesday's speech by Dudley Laws. He spoke about police violence against minorities.
You may have seen on your television screens and you may have seen in your newspapers Canada's black communities demonstrating against police brutality, police use of deadly force.
Dudley Laws is one of the founding members of Toronto's Black Action Defense Committee. Despite having to compete with Preston Manning, he drew a sizable crowd.
Hey, don't you go change that dial. Stick around and get pumped for rowing.
Okay, I'm just curious here. I was reading the letter to the editor again. He goes on to say, maybe the producers are wannabe flushlings, or worse yet, they were trying to attain that Beatles' unforgettable, nostalgic, teary-eyed feeling of quote-unquote yesterday.
I know, and then he goes on to say, does Studio Q have the license of wasting our money on insignificant and trivial stories about nothing?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Queen's is a university that cultivates curiosity and innocent wonderment of the world around it. But such things by no means are restricted to the classroom.
Molly Finlay tackles some of life's deeper questions in this, the first installment of
I'm just curious.
There are a couple of places at the university which many people have yet to discover. Do people actually use these facilities? When? And where are these little bijoux located anyway?
I'm just curious about who goes to the Skylight Dining Room. It's located upstairs in the JDUC, beside the former Nabanrigan location. Yet, although it is a service which is publicized in the Weekly Journal and has been in operation since the opening of JDUC itself, the Skylight Dining Room does not enjoy a widespread popularity among students. The menu is suited more to staff and faculty, but they do have sandwiches and reasonable prices.
This Monday we were offering a French dip sandwich, which is roast beef on a French loaf with sauce, vegetable or potato, a dessert, and beverage.
Nobody seems to know that the restaurant exists, judging from the sparse turnout at lunchtime. I'm just curious about who goes to the arcade. The Queen's Arcade Room is located in the lower area of the John Deutsch University Center, across from the rector's office. It has video and pinball games, and was fairly crowded when we visited on a Thursday afternoon. According to one patron, the games can be pretty addictive.
It's more a simulated mental addiction than anything physical or real biochemical.
Another source claimed to have spent $500 during his 4-year career at Queen's. In addition, he and his friends find Friday night is the best time to be at the arcade because it allows you to have the chance of playing any game without the wait. I'm just curious about that streetscape on University Avenue. As most of us have realized by this point, there are a few missing buildings across the street from the JDUC. The empty space there is now being used for parking, but is the future site of the new Queen's Library. Where did the houses that were once there go? Well, Jason Thompson of the AMS told us.
A few houses were demolished, just taken right apart, but a number of houses were actually picked up and moved.
Allegedly, a house moving team picked up houses and moved them to their new locations, tying up Kingston traffic for a full day. Just in case you're curious, I'm Molly Finlay reporting.
Okay, question. Who is the Prime Minister of Canada? Bing, Jonathan Bailey? You're wrong. Next question. Who is the leader of the opposition? Bing, Malcolm X? Wrong again. Yes, Thea Andrews went out this week to test the extent of your political knowledge. Eesh, it wasn't pretty.
The national referendum is approaching fast. And although the majority of the Queen's student body is eligible to vote, there doesn't appear to be too much political debate raging on campus. I thought I'd test out the political waters by throwing aside the complex constitutional issues and getting down to basics. How many Queen students actually know the names of our federal political party leaders?
I think Borsa, is he federal? No? That Christian guy.
Okay, there's Brian.
Ric Flair.
Ric Flair should be Prime Minister. Woo!
Mulroney. I'm not from around here, but okay, let me give this one a go. We have Mulroney, we have federal political.
I don't think I can. What are federal political leaders?
Well, Brian Mulroney, Crutchham. And what's her name from the Yukon? And there we go.
I don't know, maybe Sheila Cobb's head of the NDP.
She looks like a witch. She looks like a witch.
The one that doesn't know what she's doing.
Shirley MacLaine. It's Shirley MacLaine. No, wait. It's not Shirley MacLaine. It's Audrey McLaughlin.
I do know them.
No. Absolutely not. You can't name one.
No.
Try one.
No. I wouldn't. Seriously, I wouldn't know any of them.
You can't name one federal political leader.
No.
How long have you lived in Canada?
All my life.
The guy in front, head of the Liberal, he's a French guy. It's Jean something. I can't quite get it. He speaks like this.
The guy from the 70s. Chrétien. Jean Chrétien.
Okay. Well, there's only Big Bry then, isn't it? Nope, not only Big Bry. I don't know.
I mean, Jean Chrétien, yesterday's man, Mulroney, out of date. McLaughlin, little credibility, and Preston Manning, too far to the right.
My ideal PM, I have to say, would be Preston Manning.
Fascist. Take a guess.
How many are there, first of all?
I don't know. I really don't know. Big Bry's my only guess.
I'm a physicist. I don't know this.
Yeah, we're both from international part, so no, I can't.
I don't know. I'm not a politics guy.
See, I'm not politics. I'm an engineer. You've got... Sorry. I have a blind blank. I don't know. I'm serious.
So that's the state of politics today. I think if there's anyone out there who has an exquisite view of what Canada could be, should be,
wants to be where it's going. I think Neil Young's got it. Him and the lead singer for Spirit of the West.
They're at Queen's University. This is what an education in Ontario gets you. That's true. Is there anything else, madam?
It looks like some students better hit the papers before they hit the polls. For Studio Q, I'm Thea Andrews reporting.
It's 6 degrees outside, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it's early and it's cold. I don't want to get out of bed. But just think, your life couldn't possibly be as bad as Morrissey's.
It was awful early by CFRC standards, not without reason. The Queen's radio station celebrated its 70th anniversary this week by broadcasting for 36 straight hours, including all day Wednesday. That meant you could actually have CFRC wake you up for 8:30. CFRC is Canada's oldest university radio station. It's located at 101.9 on the FM dial. The Queen's Marketing Association held their first general meeting of the year last Wednesday. The QMA is a group that gives students a chance to learn about the business world and to even meet some of the movers and shakers in the corporate universe. Last week's guest speaker was the president of the Soapberry Company. But this isn't an exclusive club for commerce students, as QMA President Ryan Mugford explains.
As far as arts and science students go, we have a lot of speakers that they would be interested in, in terms of how to market your arts and science degree. They can get a lot more out of it. It isn't just, a commerce thing. It isn't just die-hard business and accounting and all.
If you were at Kilmagill last Saturday, you missed Kingston's second annual chili cook-off. Over 50 Kingston restaurants cooked up their own versions of the classic Mexican dish. For only $5, you could sample as much as your stomach could handle. The event raised almost $18,000 for a new burn unit at the Hotel Dieu Hospital. And a dozen Dylan wannabes showed up at Clark Hall Pub Tuesday night for the Luke Perry lookalike contest. The sideburns, they were flowing. The guys strutted their stuff in the Beverly Hills 90210 inspired event. In the end, this guy was crowned the evening's closest equivalent to a teen heartthrob. The prize? His very own Luke Perry doll. Queens is unique in that the student ghetto surrounds the school. However, not all students are so lucky to live in such close proximity to campus. Many students are forced to board one of Kingston Transit's finest buses and stare aimlessly at caramel cats. How do they get that soft? No, forget it. Last year, Queen's students voted on whether they'd like to continue to pay for the privilege of an all-inclusive bus pass. Sharie Ross looks at the Busset program today.
The Queen's Busset system, which was implemented 10 years ago, provides unlimited bus rides for full-time students during the school year. Last spring, Kingston Transit threatened the cancellation of the deal, arguing that costs were outweighing benefits. But in the spring referendum, Busset passed a huge fee increase, doubling the price of the previous year, but keeping the service alive. It now costs $29.50, a mandatory charge for everyone. This translates into guaranteed revenue of $413,000 from the students themselves and an additional contribution of $63,000 from the Queen's administration. Almost $500,000 regardless of whether or not students use the system.
You're right, I think
but Jason Thompson, the AMS Vice President of Operations, still feels Queen's got a good deal, speaking from a safety perspective.
Last year around April, a woman was assaulted walking back to West Campus at night. And if the bus service is going to help eliminate that, then I think it's a worthwhile service for everyone.
And for those who do not use the system?
Yeah, well, I don't myself use it very much, but I really enjoy having the opportunity to use it if I want to.
The monetary increase of Busset has also been accompanied by the introduction of the swipe card, primarily to help reduce the misuse of the program.
From what I understand, people were entering onto the bus and then they would sit down, throw their card out the window, someone else would, use it, come onto the bus, that sort of thing, and the drivers were just getting tired of that.
Now the card must be swiped through the magnetic sensor each time you board the bus. It cannot be used on the same bus within 7 minutes of its last use. Also, if you lose your swipe card, you will be required to pay a replacement fee of $29.50. However, despite the mandatory payments towards Busset, the system does provide copious benefits to students who live away from the ghetto, or for those who attend the Faculty of Education.
So I need it to get to main campus every day. Without it, I'd probably be stuck walking.
The new and more expensive Busset regime has left only a few Queen's students unhappy. Although not all students use Busset, the majority of us enjoy having the transit system as either a safer means of travelling, plus plain convenience. So for your next bus ride, remember your swipe card and have a safe and enjoyable journey. Studio Q, I'm Sharie Ross, reporting.
How many Many of you know that feminine hygiene is changing as fast as the women's movement. With issues such as the environment coming into the forefront of social thought, women are actively seeking alternatives to old methods. Bjarnason recently attended a seminar given by the Ontario Public Interest Research Group that educates women on this sometimes taboo subject.
Menstruation, tampons, pads, not really words that fit into our everyday conversation. In fact, the very reality of this monthly occurrence is often denied. Related products are serially referred to as feminine hygiene products. Remember the commercial about the woman with the microfilm? But because of the secretive nature of the subject, many women are left unaware of the serious impact these products can have on their personal health and the health of the environment.
The Ontario Public Interest Research Group of Kingston is attempting to confront these taboos and increase awareness through education. They did so last week by presenting a workshop on feminine hygiene alternative practices. Anne Montgomery, a fourth-year biochemistry student at the University of Ottawa, gave the recent workshop on alternative feminine hygiene. Montgomery, nicknamed the Tampon Lady by the Ottawa Press, is involved in a provincially funded study of the environmental and health effects of menstrual products.
And the tampons are also bleached white, the pads also. Plus, so the bleaching process leads to the dioxin residue, which causes cancer, immune depression, genetic birth defects.
Statistics show that 50% of American women use tampons, and the statistics in Canada are probably very similar. Yet Health and Welfare Canada has listed tampons as a high-risk medical device and rely on the voluntary compliance of industry to meet its regulation for tampon standards. Also, tampons contain substances such as magnesium, boron, aluminum, waxes, perfumes, and alcohols. And believe it or not, tampons are not sterile.
The second major concern is that feminine hygiene products create an environmental problem. The average woman throws away 250 to 300 pounds of sanitary pads, tampons, and applicators in a lifetime.
However, there are alternatives.
Organically grown, non-chlorine bleached cotton pads. So that's the best thing, but there's different grades.
While there are small amounts of research being done on feminine hygiene, such as the research project at Ottawa University, many feel the government should fund further studies and not relying on the voluntary compliance of the industry to meet regulations. Feminine hygiene products present a health risk to women and create serious environmental damage. For Studio Q, I'm Bjarnason reporting.
I'm sure you're one of those guys that can appreciate Silken Laumann for her, determination, considering that she was in that accident and she persisted and she still wanted to compete and whatever.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, Kirsta. I'll tell you. I wish that half the hockey players in the National Hockey League had her determination, Because I remember being down in Boston. I was down in Boston. I go out there. I see these rowers from Harvard out on the water. You know when? 5 a.m. That's right, 5 in the morning. These guys are down there. They're rowing on the water. Very cold temperatures. Well, this guy's got nothing but respect for rowers. Great. Love them.
Well, I'm sure you'd be a great rower if you could row like you yap. I'm just kidding, Bucko.
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin Bryenton takes a look at rowing.
We are about to embark on a journey of sight and sound to a place Rod Serling himself would fear to tread. It is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to men. A middle ground between light and shadow, science and superstition. It is an area we call the rowing zone. Yep, it's 5 a.m., it's cold, it's dark, and it's the Kingston Rowing Club, where the two most gullible reporter and cameramen in Kingston are trying to find out exactly why these people get up so early every day and stroke to exhaustion on the cold, blustery waters of Lake Ontario. Over 70 students and coaches partake of this prolific nightmare 5 to 10 times a week, and have been doing so since the inaugural year in 1977. Rowers come in all shapes and sizes. The strict dividing line between heavy and lightweight is 160 pounds for men and 130 pounds for females. They also come in packages of 8, 4, 2, and the loners of the rowing crowd, the single scullers. These variations aside, they all share a certain strength of character, dedication, team spirit, excellent physical condition, and superb rowing technique. Oh, and they also have to have excellent night vision, because even after practice starts, the sun doesn't come up for another 2 hours. Queens rowers seem to have all these under wraps, however, for after the preliminary tryouts, they entered 14 events at the head of the Trent Regatta and won 10.
When asked of the team's prospects for the season, head coach John Armitage replied that returning veterans were numerous and rookies looked very promising. If the showing at Trent is any indicator, Queens has a good chance to finish among the tops at OUs, as they have for the past few years. Coach Armitage was especially surprised with turnout for the varsity development teams, which he linked strongly to the success of the Olympic rowing team in Barcelona.
And for them to be first and second, I think it is a result of the Olympics and the fact that we had 100 people try out and we had the opportunity to select the 16 best athletes.
Well, the real question is, why did he do it? I mean, really, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. We took to water to see if the heavyweight men's A crew had anything philosophical to offer.
Don't you question your sanity when you have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning? You come here and freeze for...
They didn't respond to my line of questioning, being either a little shy or too cold to talk. So I'm running out of gas in the shark-infested waters of Lake Ontario and hitching a ride with a lightweight coach boat. We caught up with the lightweight 8 women's crew on dry land, who had this to say about the benefits of rowing.
I think working together as a crew sort of really brings you together, really. You get close sense out of it. It's addictive, I think, and I think a lot of people would agree with me about that.
Although addiction to 5 a.m. practices might seem slightly improbable, the fresh air, beautiful scenery, the camaraderie, and the obvious health benefits of rowing make the dedication and commitment of these athletes both incredible and noble.
If you're not rowing, you miss it, like, instantly, and you might complain about the cold and the blisters and the hard workouts, but in the end, I mean, there's enjoyment, and I think it's sort of like a natural high, I guess.
For Studio Q, I'm Kevin Bryenton reporting.
And all that practice paid off for the rowers this weekend. The men's and women's rowing team won 9 out of 13 events this past weekend at a competition against the University of Toronto. The annual Kill-Gale football game was a victory in the Gales' favor. Queens won 27-17. The women's field hockey team had a disappointing weekend, losing 2 games in time 1 at a tournament in Toronto. In an exhibition play, the Queens hockey team beat RMC 6-5. The regular hockey season starts on Alumni Weekend. Next week we have a story on house legends, and I was talking to the person that is doing the story, and it was pretty good. It was interesting because I've never known.
House legends.
No, I've never known what a lot of the names, like what a lot of the houses stand for. Like you know the names, and you know, but you never really know. That's kind of interesting. But you're excited, Ron.
Did you have a name for yours? What, did you have a name for yours?
Well, I just sort of called our house. I used to call it the dollhouse because it looked like a dollhouse that I used to have when I was younger. It's like a little fence and it's
Barbie
white
lives here.
But someone was saying that there's a house really called the dollhouse. I don't know. Like I don't know. That's what I like to call our house, but.
You're gonna see Kirsten's like a big hand come down and pick up Kirsten.
Oh.
Like put her through the roof or something.
Does your house have a name?
Well, it used to be called the Cliffs of Insanity. From the Cliffs Bride fans will know the Cliffs of Insanity.
Yeah.
And now it's called Whoville.
Oh yeah, how come?
Too soon. It's a great
I think she's called Bucko's.
Okay, we're calling her Giggles from now on. Giggles. Giggles. Giggles Teague.
Okay, anyways, we also have a story next week on women's water polo. So it should be good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I guess we'll see you next week. Studio Thursdays at 6 and Fridays at 4:30.
Watch it.
See ya. And I'm Bryenton.
Studio Q, the Queen's weekly television show, is brought to you each week by Cablenet 13, a Queen Alma Mater Society. Tune in next week, Thursday at 6 and Friday at 4:30 on Cablenet 13.